So here we are with Conquest Paradise. I'm about to start. I just want to, one of the functions in the game, whoever has the lowest victory points, and that's kind of random at the beginning of the game, gets to select who goes first, and they get the turn order marker, and which direction play is going to revolve in. And here we're going to do it counterclockwise. We had this guy who is the Samoan player, got the draw, and he's going to force his neighbor in Tonga to make the first play. It's questionable whether or not you want to take the first turn on that first move. For some players it might be worth it, for some it's not. Tonga decided they wanted, or Samoa decided they wanted Tonga to go first, because they're kind of divided at the beginning of the game. Of course, there is one island which might be of some value right next to them, and we'll see whether or not their strategies had any effect on this. So, taking the first player, the Tongans are going to move into this space, and now I randomly select a chit, which they're allowed to look at. And what do we got there? We got an off course. Well, that's kind of weird. That means another player gets to select, and I'm not sure which one, where they actually went to explore. Of course, the player sitting on your left, so yeah. And that can be anywhere adjacent to this, including far away. So we're going to explore here. And the off-course marker goes in place here. And then we draw a chit. And he got an island group, which he's going to put down. That's a 3-knot island group. That means, first of all, he draws an island, which he looks at, and it's not very impressive. It's placed face down. And now he has the option to either go home or draw another piece. If he draws a 2-knot piece, he will get one additional, he'll have to go home. If he draws a 3-knot piece, he'll end up in the lost box. He's going to go and try to re-explore this space. Now, he paid nothing for the off-course. He only paid for the space he was in. And he draws an empty sea space at 1 knot. And he's just going to go home with that. And that shows you how exploration goes. At the end of that, we turn those up to see what we actually got. The sea space remains here. This is removed, but he gets a discovered marker to show that he's the only person who knows where it is. And we'll fill out the exploration for the rest of the players. So after a turn of just the exploration, we're seeing some empty sea zones, some island groups, again just seen by the players who actually have explored them. Empty seas, and a couple of the explorers went a little too far, and they won't be available next turn. Okay, and here we are at the end of that first turn, and we did some building. Everybody does their building simultaneously, and in some cases it's pretty easy. You had 2 villages, that produces 2 points, that's enough to build another village. I can't build in the brown space because that requires that I improve the agriculture first, which costs a 3rd point. So at this point I can't just upgrade that. That's a pretty obvious move, which both Samoa and Tonga took. It's sort of the cheapest way to advance. Raiatea is not in such a good position. He had nowhere that he could go, and he didn't move any of his stuff. We don't know what he had to begin with. We can peek. He ended up building some colonists, but otherwise he just had a couple of boats, which is kind of a weird start. I play with the advanced rule that allows you to select your start. And it's not very flexible. You'd be better off with 2 transport canoes and a colonist, but you know, it's no great loss there. But if he had had that, he could have colonized here or here if it had something. Now when we go over to Hiva, we see he had 2 points, which isn't enough to increase this, so he built something. Turns out to be a warrior, because he had transport canoes and the colonist, and the colonist was shipped here. So counting up victory points, these guys hit 1, 2, 3 for their villages, plus 1 for the area they control, and Tonga and Samoa are both at 4. Raiatea, which didn't get anything added, stays at the baseline of 3, and Hiwa, on the other hand, has 1, 2, 3 villages, plus 2 territories, so they're at 5 victory points, and in the lead. And that's not unusual for Hiwa to be in the lead, because they are over on the edge, away from everyone else. So they can kind of take a riskier start in terms of, they don't have to worry about somebody invading them right away. How likely is that? It's very possible. Somebody could easily build a warrior band and a transport canoe. No, you'd need a war canoe and a warrior band to do it, and you don't have the points for that to begin with. So a first turn raid isn't going to happen, but second turn it could. So it might be useful to have some points in military units at the beginning of the game. We'll see what turns out there. There might be a desire for this guy to try to attack Hiwa, thinking, hey, there probably aren't any troops there. We'll see how it all goes, though. So here on the second turn, 2 players, the Samoans and the Hivans, did not get to do any exploration at all. We do see a lot of exploration going on in here, near the Raiateans, mostly empty. They found 1 island group. And then over Tonga also only found 1 new island group. We'll see what those are as they come up. They know what they are. I'd just rather not show them at this point. Alright, so then we go on to the regular movement and the building. And if we see anything interesting happen, I'll stop and show that. So the turn ended. Nobody was doing anything exciting. See, we started over with the Heathens, and they increased their. They moved transport canoes into both their islands. So now that they're connected, and they can combine their production, and they used the points. 1, 2, 3. One of them was to build, or 2 of them were to build another village, and the other one, I'm not sure, some hidden piece. If it's 1 point, it's probably a transport canoe. It could be a hidden piece, and they could hold a coin. That's an optional rule that I'm sort of playing with, but I don't really want to. I didn't do that. Alright, over to the Tongans. They built some more pieces. They need to settle something. They haven't been able to grow with what they had on the board. Over to the Samoans. They built some pieces. They had 3 points total. They spent an extra point to convert a brown area, which is you can't build a village on, to a cultivated area, which you can. And that gives them the right now to build more villages. And then finally over to the Raiateans, who sailed over to Niu and picked that up. Point-wise, we see the Heathens gained a point for their extra village, and the Raiateans gained 2 points by adding a new island. That island can't grow anymore. They've got it as populated as it can be. Alright. And after another turn, we're seeing the board filling out a little bit more. forces being built for further colonization, etc. Nobody's been lost. They've been kind of playing it careful. Nobody has used their explorer to gain additional production either. Later in the game, that's going to happen a lot because we're seeing, large sections, and it's kind of hard to see on the board what's ocean and what's not unless I have the thing kind of off the box. So, for example, here we have an explored ocean, but nothing explored around it because somebody got knocked off course. Point wise, everyone's up to about 6. Well, except for the one guy. Basically, we've got 2 islands in each case. Big change. Tahiti has been claimed. That's going to be kind of a point of contention between the Eritreans and the Samoans. That's a valuable island sitting right between them. They're both probably going to be interested in it. The Samoans got lucky in terms of it being right next to them. And then over here we have 2 as well. The only person who's behind right now are the Eritreans, and that getting a single point island as their only addition, and they start out with one of the weaker islands, so they have kind of a disadvantage there. One of the things is the Samoans and Tongans start out with a better island setup to begin with. They're right next to each other, so the assumption is there will be fighting there. I don't know how big that assumption really is. Balance-wise, I think they have the edge because of that, and they also have a closer access to these, which might become of value late in the game. I'm going to wrap this one up so that I can get it loaded. It's close to about how long I like to do these. And then tomorrow, hopefully after my interview, we'll see some more development on the board. This is going to take at least one more day, maybe 2. Just I don't get that much time to game anymore.